Welcome back to the newest edition of the Unapologetic Podcast. I'm Brandt Merritt, joined by
Jonathon Woodyard.
And our guest today, Clark Sheehy, Director of Athletics for SBU. Clark, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Avid listener of our podcast.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, we're excited to have
It's
you.
an exciting time.
We're going to talk a lot about sports today, Bearcat sports, but also we've been talking a little bit about other stuff. So that's kind of like the icebreaker I was going to start with. What are you guys most excited about across the whole college basketball landscape for this year? Lots of coaches in new places, Kentucky fans trying to get used to some new stuff. I mean, what's exciting with college basketball for right now?
I mean, I can start. Kentucky, you mentioned Kentucky. Super excited. I was very thankful for John Calipari. Very thankful for 15 years at the university. Did a lot of great things. Actually had a chance to go in 2012 and watch him play Kansas for the national title. So that was just something I'll always remember. But it was time for a change, and I think he'll do great at Arkansas. I really do. I think he'll do a great job. But excited for Mark Pope. Was the captain of the basketball team. I think he was the captain of the basketball team in 1996 when he won the title. So this guy bleeds blue. He knows what it means to wear Kentucky across the chest. So just seeing him there, his energy, the fun that he brings to the game, I'm excited to see what happens. So we beat Duke.
Yeah, you do.
We beat Duke.
Right.
And so whatever else happens this year, we beat Duke. So.
I think the start of basketball season is always so much fun. Brandt, we used to, when I was coaching, we would talk about when the weather starts to change and you wake up in the morning and you need to put on a sweatshirt or a long sleeve shirt. That's always a fun time of year because it means basketball season's getting close. Football season's ramping up where the games are really, really important and playoff pictures on each game. Yeah. College is on Saturdays and pros on Sundays. And then with the start of basketball, it's always so much fun. I think college basketball has changed so much in the last 5 years that rosters are so different. It's a lot of fun trying to see your favorite teams and what do they look like? How do they look different than they did last year? Yep. How do they look better? How do they look worse? What are the concerns? And then obviously some of the early season matchups are a lot of fun to watch, like Jonathon was talking about with Duke and Kentucky, where you get maybe a preview of what it could look like in March. Those are always really, really fun things to keep up with and then see how things progress from there.
And you just got to go to an Arkansas game, Troy. Tell us about that experience a little bit. That was fun.
Sure. I mean, a good friend of mine is a coach at Troy University, and they played Arkansas actually last night and got a chance to go and see him and connect with him. We'd coached together 20 years ago. Was my first job at a school called Texas State University, and I was an assistant there. And we worked together for 5 years, and just a good friend, and stayed in good touch. So it was really cool to see him play last night. They didn't win. Arkansas beat them. Arkansas looks pretty good, Jonathon. You need to be ready for that. All this flowery talk about and John Calipari. But it was really fun to see a friend and see him in his element and watching him compete and enjoying that was a lot of fun.
It's a pretty cool place, right? I mean, the energy in Bud Walton's pretty high.
It seats about 20,000 people. It's one of the larger on-campus gyms. I don't know where it would rank on campus.
It's not as big as Kentucky, but it's
yeah. We had a chance 4 or 5 years ago with SBU to go play Arkansas, and that was a lot of fun and a memory that I know, having gone to high school in the state of Arkansas and college there, it was really special for me and something that I'll always remember. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and I'm the Mizzou guy, so I'm just hoping we're 500. That you guys have like title aspirations. Arkansas, Kentucky. I'm like, man, if we just get 500, get back to the tournament, I'd be good. We got Mark Mitchell's a transfer this year. He's okay. But we played Eastern Illinois the other night, and I think Mizzou shot 3 of 25 from 3 the whole game. He's like, we can't do that all year. So hopefully that turns around.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Well, we're going to talk some more basketball. And Clark, you right now are athletic director, but you kind of hinted at it. You've been in basketball. You've been a coach. As you're, just kind of starting off, can you walk us through sort of that path you've taken to get to athletic director now, and then we can kind of talk about where SBU athletics are right now.
Sure. So I played at a school called John Brown University in Arkansas. I played for 4 years. I actually played for my father, who's my college coach. So my mom and dad met at SBU, and that was the connection of how I'd heard all my life about Southwest Baptist. But I played for my dad in college and then had the opportunity to go get my master's degree at a school called Texas A&M Commerce. They recently just changed their name to East Texas A&M in about an hour and a half east of Dallas, and was a Division II school at the time. Has recently transitioned to be an NCAA Division I school,
Okay.
and was there for a year while I got my master's degree. And then from there, I got my first full-time job at Texas State University, which is where I was met my friend that I was telling you about, and was full-time, working a lot of hours for little pay. And it started off my first office.
doing that.
Yeah, my first office, Brandt, was in an official's locker room. So there was a bathroom roughly about 10 yards or not 10 yards, 10 feet from my makeshift desk. So that was an interesting time, and I learned a lot, just working and getting to learn the ins and outs of college sports and college basketball, and trying to figure out how to do it well and learn and grow. So that was very rewarding and fun. And then from there, I got my first head job at a school in California called Fresno Pacific University. And the first time I had been in the state of California was on my interview. And that was a fun time. It was knowing a friend of a friend who knew the local sports guy in Fresno that knew the athletic director, and just the way the Lord orchestrates all that. Sometimes you can't explain, but it was really cool. So was out there for 2 years as a head coach, then had a chance to come back to my alma mater at John Brown, and I coached there for 7 years. And then an opportunity opened up at SBU, and just really felt like it was something I should pursue and something that I should look at. And it just happened really quick where, I was interested in coming here, and they were interested in us coming here. And so that's kind of how we ended up here. And then at John Brown, I'd had a couple of years where I was an assistant AD and had some different administrative experiences. We were on different committees and we built a new gymnasium while I was in that role. We did some different external things, and then looked at making some different moves as far as affiliation of NAI or NCAA, and just a lot of those research things. And I like that, but I still really wanted to coach. And so when I got up here, coached and tried to do a good job for our school that we love. And then when the opportunity came, there was a transition with my boss at the time, the athletic director spot. Reached out to Dr. Melson, just said, I don't know if this would be something that you'd be interested in, if you want an internal candidate or an external candidate, but I do have a little bit of experience, not a ton, but a little bit. And if you'd be interested, I'd love to talk to you. So that's kind of how that happened, where I'm in the position I'm at now.
2 questions for you. One, what position did you play in basketball?
I was a 2 guard, and I was not very fast, or I didn't jump very high.
2 guard for maybe the uninitiated. What
it was a shooting guard.
Yeah,
Yes.
shooting guard.
Yes.
Okay. Second question, you're talking about this, Brandt's question, how you got to where you are. I was sitting with a student the other day, a football player, actually, and he was asking questions about things that he should be doing if he wanted to go into kind of your line of work. And I'm like, well, you should actually be talking to somebody else. But what would you say to a student like that who thinks, hey, I love sports, love being around sports, I'm probably not going to play in the NBA or NFL,
Sure.
but how would they go about getting in that world?
Well, if they wanted to go into coaching, the first thing I would say is you need practice. And every program has opportunities where you can come and serve. I get asked that sometimes, Jonathon, oh, man, I would love to be a head college coach. What do I need to do that? Well, if we could rewind back to my first gig, 10 feet from a toilet, there was a lot of that job that was not a lot of fun. It was checking breakfast in the morning and keeping a tally of who all missed breakfast and checking every class. We used to check every player, every class, every day. And so if someone missed a class, it was on me to make sure that our staff knew, okay, he missed his college algebra class at 8:00, and I went and checked on him and he was asleep or whatever, so there's a lot that goes into becoming a head coach. And the best thing I could say to a student is, if you wanted to go into coaching, is start. If you like football, go volunteer with Coach Clardy. If you like volleyball, go volunteer with Coach Hanger. If it's keeping a chart, if it's filming, if it's doing the laundry, all those things are important so you can learn what really makes that position. As far as being an administrative type of role, I think that's kind of the same thing. Come see us. We have lots of opportunities where you can help. We have lots of hands that we need on deck for games. One of the eye openers to me, shifting from purely coaching to being purely administrator, is all that goes into running an event. People come to a football game and they say, oh, that was kind of cool that they talked about that guy in between quarters. Well, that may have been months working on, hey, could you be here at this time? Does this fit with you? Does it fit with your family's calendar? Does it fit with your schedule? Here's what we're thinking. And just a lot of the behind the scenes things that go into something like that, or an event, as you guys know, you're putting on stuff all the time. There's just a lot of things that if someone said, I really want to get into administration, I would say, man, figure out a way to get involved, start volunteering. Don't expect to make a lot of money at first, because you never do on anything good. You got to work your way up. But just get exposed to it and see if, this is something that I really like. This is something I can see myself being passionate about and enthusiastic about. And then usually if you're passionate and enthusiasm, whatever, I'm butchering that, but about what you're doing, you're going to be good at it. Yeah. And then if you're good at it, then opportunities kind of seem to follow.
So is that for SBU students that may watch this, current SBU students, they're not athletes, but they love being around athletics. Is there somebody that they could go talk to say, hey, I'd love to volunteer.
Sure.
I'd love to help out. Who would that be?
They could come see myself, or they could see Stefan Skillman. Yeah. Stefan coordinates a lot of our game day personnel and who's doing what and where they're at. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, we had a young man from the Kansas City area that he said, hey, I don't qualify for work study. It's purely volunteer, but I think I'd like to get into administration. Could I just come and job shadow Stefan Skillman's position? At the time, it was a guy named Robbie Shea. And so they said, sure. So he would come on game days. He'd ride around with him in the car. He'd follow around. He'd help. Just kind of hands and feet. Well, at the end of the year, he said, Coach, could you put some references out for me? And he had multiple offers for initial jobs just because he had experience of helping. So, I think there's lots of ways that you can help and get involved. And the thing, Jonathon, that I think is really important with that is seeing if it clicks. Seeing if sparks fly when you do that, where you say, oh, yeah, this is really, really what I want to do. That I think that experience is invaluable.
Yeah, and you have to love it, because I thought it's good you hit that point of you're not going to get the athletic director position year one. I mean, you're going to start, and this is for any kind of role, but especially for something like this, it's grunt work.
Sure. For
a while to work your way up into, so you got to love it. And a lot of people do love it. So it's one of those things you can easily be passionate about, which I think is great. And your son is actually kind of doing a little bit of it now too.
Calvin
He's in high school, but helping.
Kind of shadowing Coach Clardy up at the football field and learning the coaching side. He's doing a lot of stuff right now, filming. He's out there with an iPad filming the plays, running around, and the receivers are watching what they did right or wrong. So he's just seeing, is this something he likes to do? But it's been a great experience for him.
It's awesome. So we're in that transition season. Fall sports are almost completely wound down, and winter sports are starting. So I kind of wanted to bridge both of those. So if we look at fall and just sort of recapping how the fall went, I mean, what are some of the highlights that you would look to for this fall with Bearcat Athletics?
Sure. Yeah, we had a good fall in a lot of ways. When you say what was one of the highlights, I think off the top of my head, I thought our cross country teams had a great fall. Girls placed second in the conference. Our league is really strong, top to bottom. So to finish second was really, really solid. And our guys did a good job at conference. And then in regional, I think they were one spot below what Corey told me their kind of dream goal was. Sure. Because cross country is unique, guys, in that you can kind of know where you're going to finish usually before you go, based on times and how past performances. You can have a pretty good beat. So there's not a ton of variability of, okay, one team finished 8th this week and next week they may finish first, because the times just are not that all over the place. It's pretty tight as far as meet to meet. It's pretty consistent. Yeah. But our guys and girls did a great job in cross country. I'm proud of our football team. They've had a rough year in a lot of ways, and probably the biggest challenge has just been on the injury front. I mean, they've had the other day I was at practice, and their trainer Kira came up and I said, "You've been busy this year with our football team," and she said, "Clark, I can remember in my 5 or 6 years of doing this, maybe having one season where we had 2 or 3 season-ending injuries." And she says, this year this group's had almost 9, almost 10 season-ending injuries. Wow. So that's been a challenge, and that's hard. But when I went and watched them play last week, and I saw, even though we didn't win, I saw them continue to compete. I saw them play to the end. I saw them in the fourth quarter pick up a fumble and run it all the way back and give ourselves a chance. You're sitting there saying, the lessons those guys are learning in that, I think, is invaluable from the standpoint of, I was explaining to my son the other day, I think I'm getting long-winded. Is this too long? Okay, good. I was just explaining to him, I think there's a thought process in our society that if I work really, really hard, then I automatically will win. Yeah. And I was like, that's false. That's pseudo. That's wrong. Like I told him, it's like if you go to the dance, it doesn't mean you get to dance with the pretty girl. if you get into the dance, then you have a chance to maybe dance with the pretty girl that you want to dance with. And I said, hard work is that way. Hard work doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get what you want, but without it, you got no chance. And it's kind of the entry ticket to get into the dance, so to speak, to give yourself a chance. And so I see that, and I see that with our football team, and I'm proud of that in a lot of ways. And I think there's some other things that are going on that are signs of a stronger culture that's happening. And I know you mentioned you might want to talk about that a little bit, but there's some indicators there that there's some groundwork that's being laid that is really critical to sustain success that I'm excited about. Our volleyball team has had a really good run. They're playing their best volleyball at the end of the year, which is great. Last week on Friday night, they beat Rockhurst, which was the first time we've beaten them. They're traditional, really, really strong in women's volleyball. First time we've beaten them since 1987. And that put us right in the middle of that's right in the middle of conference postseason. First time we're fighting for a playoff bid in a long time. So I'm super excited.
1,000 kills for a volleyball.
Yes. Ella Rademacher's she's just a really good player. She's fun to watch because when she hits that thing, it's going down and fast.
She's a delightful person. She came up before the game, chatted with me. He's thankful that we were there. Some of us were there, and it just seems like a great girl, but then also a great volleyball player.
You bet. And that's what's fun. One of the most enjoyable parts of my job is when you get to know the athletes and you get to see them and interact with them and joke with them, and then you go watch them compete. It's so much fun. But I'm super proud of our volleyball team. I think they've had a really strong year. They've got a huge weekend this weekend. They play Missouri St. Louis, who's top 25 on the road, so that'll be a big test. But I told Coach Hanger, I said, when you work really, really hard, kind of like what we just talked about the entry fee to something fun, the exciting part of a season is if you play well enough, then you get to have your most meaningful games at the end of the year. And I said, you've earned that. So now go get it and have some fun with it. And then our soccer teams have been in transition, 2 new coaches, new styles of play, new philosophies, new just, when you take over a program, it just takes a little bit for everybody to kind of really understand. But we saw some growth there, and super, super excited about the trajectory that those 2 sports have had. So, in some ways, from the outside, you may look at it and say, we've had some rough records, and I get that, but there are also a ton of positive things that when you look a little bit deeper, you can begin to see those and say, okay, that's the formation of something that we can really build on that's going to be really, really good in the future.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on like volleyball conference playoff potential, cross-country conference performance. I mean, we're in a tough conference. I mean, NCAA Division II, GLVC, there's not really any walkovers. I mean, so that it's like every week when you get into conference play, it's real competition, which is great. I mean, you guys love that competition. But I mean, how has that conference sort of competition been something you guys are really striving after?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think as far as within the league, what we really try to talk to our coaches about is just making steady growth, steady improvement, within the environment around your team, and then just with how we're competing, and here's what's crazy. I learned this a long time ago in coaching. Sometimes my team can be better, and I can have a stronger atmosphere, and our team can be more talented, but we may not win more.
Yeah, you're right.
Winning is not always an indicator of the process that's going into doing the things that happen. And so we try to encourage our coaches, hey, we want to compete. We want to do well. We told them 2 weeks ago in a meeting, hey, as long as SBU's paying for the electricity to light the scoreboard up, we need to do everything we can to try to win that game.
Yeah.
But in the middle of that, I think it's the process of how do we get better? How do we improve? How can we get our deficiencies tightened up? And how can we make our strengths stronger in our programs? And then as we do that, as a result, you usually win your share.
Yeah, for sure. So we're starting winter sports. Basketball has played a couple matches, man, a couple of games. Men's opened up in an exhibition against Missouri State, which was pretty fun to be down in Springfield.
Runs either.
Thank you for that. I know. And I'm the sports guy. Right? I used to be a sports writer. So
Used to be.
Yeah, used to be. Start to look at the winter. I mean, what are the things that you're excited about watching with our winter sports?
I think with our men's and women's basketball teams, Coach Harrell on the women's side and Coach Niven on the men's side, starting year 2 for both of their head coaching tenure here at SBU. I think that's really exciting, to see, okay, they were able to bring in some recruits that fit their personalities and their style of play and where they're wanting to go and how they're going to build it. So that's always fun for me to watch, to see how they're going to begin to put the pieces together. I think for the women's team, they obviously returned Tori Hamilton, who was an all-conference player last year. And she's just such a unique player in that she's athletic. She really runs well. She finishes well, and she's 6'6". And so it is a fun watch. It is a fun thing watching her play and see how teams adjust to her, because you have to account for her because she's just so unique in her skill set and her size inside. So that's always fun to watch. I went up and watched our women's team play Ferris State, which is a top 15 team, last Saturday. We competed well. I think we ended up losing by 5 or 6 points, but had a good showing and got down pretty good, and then all we came back and had a chance to really, really contend for the game at the end of the game. So I was excited about that, and it's fun to see. It'll be fun to see the growth of them as they have a lot of new pieces as the year goes on. I think with the guys, obviously they won their home opener against Ozark Christian, played well against Missouri State, so that's exciting for them. I think it's fun for me to watch Mitch Ganote come back. He's a super senior. And has been a 2-time first-team All-League GLVC guy. He didn't play. I think he played in 1 game. It just missed all year. And so that really threw some curveballs on us last year, just because then people were having to play different positions and different roles, and he's just a valuable piece of the puzzle. And then obviously Drennan Dinkins had a really good year last year and had moments where you're just going, man, he's a phenomenal scorer and just fun to watch. When Drennan was in high school, we went to recruit him. And in the state championship game of his senior year, he scored 31 points, I believe, at Missouri State in the first half. Wow. So he's a guy that once he gets it going, he can be electric. So it's just, I'm excited about watching them play and excited about just the growth that they'll have this year.
Yeah, that's great. We touched on this a little bit and kind of talking about building programs, and not just individual teams, but the whole athletic program. Now in an athletic director seat, so you're not just working on the basketball team, but you're trying to think, what's the kind of SBU athletic program that I want to see built? What are the kind of people that I want to have? What's the kind of culture that I want to build? Because obviously being a Christian school, an unapologetically Christian school, I mean, there are things that we look at beyond the box score. Box score is really important. But, man, we want to have kids who are being formed, who have great character, who are serving their community and other things. And so what are, as you sort of try to put your stamp on and build a program, what are the things that you've looked at? What's the stuff you stress with coaches? What are the things they stress with athletes? Just kind of broadly maybe start there and talk about culture of a program.
Yeah, sure. In athletics, we talk a lot about culture. There's a deal on social media where they talk about all these different coaches' press conferences, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's culture, and it's like I got 50 different coaches, and they're all saying that, and obviously there's key parts of why that's important. When I think of culture, Brandt, I think of just the atmosphere and just the temperature of the room in a program, and what's being emphasized, what's being done, and what's conducive, and what's allowed, what's not allowed, are all factors of the atmosphere of a program. And I think when I love Southwest Baptist, because I think we have an opportunity. This is what I would tell you. If I was sitting in your living room and I was recruiting you to come to SBU, this is what I would tell you. You're going to get to come here and you're going to get a great degree. You're going to have to work really, really hard in your classes, because you're going to be taught by really high level, great faculty. They're going to pour into you and demand excellence from you. You're going to get to play a sport at a really, really high level, high Division II, which in a lot of ways is every bit as good as low Division I, and it's going to be competitive, and we're going to want to try to strive and get the best out of you in whatever sport you're playing, so that we can take you to that next level. And then thirdly, you're going to do it in an environment where you get to grow as a person and grow in your faith. And I think that's our proposition. That's what we're having the opportunity to sell. Now, does everybody that come, are all of them Christian and strong in their faith? No. But I think they've got to be open to who we are and understand who we are, because if not, then they're going to be frustrated when they're here. And we want guys and ladies to come and grow and learn together and grow together and grow in academically, so they become the professionals they can be, grow in their sport so we can compete and have fun and fill arenas and fill stadiums and bring great publicity to the school that way. And then we want them to grow as people, so that way they're closer with the Lord and their walk is stronger. So then when they go out, now they're dynamic and they can do that. So those are the things that we talk about with our coaches. We try to expose them to a lot of different things. A lot of times we'll say, hey, what's the best thing you guys are doing for spiritual development on your teams? Go. And let them talk to each other and brainstorm. We'll have different mentors or older coaches come in and do like this in a Zoom and ask them questions. How do you do it? What's important? How do we make this thing stronger? I don't have a corner on the market. I'm always trying to get better and look at how we can improve those things.
It all out.
Oh my gosh! But just trying to get our coaches exposed to different things. Yeah. And I think when I think of culture in that regard, I hope our coaches know, here's what we're after, here's our objectives, and then we need to be systematically doing things to try to achieve our objectives and trying to get what we're after. And we're going to ask you about it. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to make sure that we're trying to all pull in the same direction and see what we're after. It's a really long answer to your question. Does that give you an idea?
It does. Well, and this might steal some of your thunder too, because Dr. Nelson talks about this a lot. We've talked about it a lot. I mean, one of the ways that we're seeing fruit of some of that at Chapel is just kind of an obvious example. And we joke about it, that our front row seats that we used to always sit in Chapel are now full of football players.
Sure.
Which was never the case, 2 years ago. So, I mean, what are some of those things that you're now starting to see as fruit of how this is really playing out?
Yeah. The other night I go to FCA Fields of Faith, and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of sitting inside. My 2 boys are there, so I'm trying not to be in the way where I'm embarrassing them, right? So I'm kind of stuck inside. We got 2 SBU athletes speaking, one at the beginning, one at the end. They do a fantastic job. And at the back is probably 8 to 10 SBU athletes just coming to support their friends that are trying to make a difference. Yeah. I bumped into the FCA guy on the way in. He says, hey, Clark, I just want to tell you, we had our quarterback, Sal, our quarterback, went and led a huddle this place. Colin, our other quarterback, went and led a huddle this place. And they're just doing a fantastic job. I'm hearing about our football staff that's getting discipled by an FCA person in town that's having a weekly Bible study where they're getting poured into. I think of our women's basketball team. Someone stopped me the other day and said, hey, do you know how much time they're spending at COM just serving and helping and donating their time? And I'm like, no. And so I told our coaches last week, I said, hey, guys, y'all got to let me know this stuff. A, so I don't look dumber than I already am, and B, so I can know, because that's good stuff. We've got to be able to promote what we're doing and how we're involved. So there's all kinds of things like that where I'm seeing the character of our athletes being impactful around in our town, in younger athletes, and just even on their teams. That really gets me excited, because I think, and I've told our coaches this, I think when we really understand the missional component, and our coaches do, about the opportunity that we have, in society now. I read some research, it's been a couple years ago now, Jonathon, of young people and the people that they put in authority, like that they will really listen to. And, police officers, school teachers, counselors, and a coach. Yeah. And a coach is almost at the top of the list. Yeah. And so we've got an opportunity there to really impart into our young people while we have them, as they're making this transition in their life from young adulthood to adulthood, or being with their parents to being independent. And if we can use the leverage of playing sports and athletics as a way to really do life well together with them, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, in student development, we run into an issue with a student. They're struggling in some way, or they've done something they shouldn't have done. Like, where's that support network we can pull around them? And we are very cognizant of the fact that if we can get a coach involved in their life, get a coach involved in the situation, the differences that makes and how it helps a student, encourages a student, puts them back on the right trajectory. Coaches have been invaluable with some of the issues I've had to deal with, them coming alongside of those players and those players responding to that coach involvement. So they're massively important to what we're doing with our students.
You bet.
So a little more nuts and bolts. of the scope of athletics and the scene right now. NIL, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal. I mean, these are things that every college across the country is dealing with, every athletic program, that some pieces of it maybe were out there, before 2 or 3 years ago, but it's completely been a seismic shift in the landscape. So how are you, the rest of the athletic program, and just the university as a whole, because I get in the middle of some of the stuff like in the NIL, and we work with transfer students and admissions. So, I mean, as in your seat, how have those things changed, and what are we doing to work through them?
It's changed a lot in the last 7 to 10 years for sure. The name, image, likeness is not going anywhere. I was at a meeting the other day and or on a Zoom, and the president of the NCAA is a man named Charlie Baker, and he just talked about there's probably going to be some more regulations and some more guardrails to NIL, but it's not going away anytime soon. So one of the things we've done over the summer is we partnered with a company called Influxer, where every athlete has the opportunity to market and do some branding of different apparel and merchandise stuff with their name, with their number on it, and they get a portion of the revenue with that. There's also lots of other NIL opportunities that athletes can pursue on their own. That's a department-wide thing that we launched, but there's lots of other ways that students can use, whether it's their social media platform or their connections with people on and off campus to pursue NIL opportunities to generate some revenue. So that's an exciting thing. That's very new, and that we're trying to navigate. How can we best give our students the resources that they need, but also do it in a way where it's conducive and good for the entire thing. As far as the transfer portal, that's been an interesting dynamic. There's just a lot more people leaving their school. So probably within that dynamic, one of the main changes is, before you would have to sit out typically if you transfer from a 4-year school to another 4-year school. And they've lifted a lot of those restrictions of having to sit out. So 9 years ago, when I was recruiting, if a kid was at a Division I school, and let's say he redshirted and he transferred to another Division I school, he'd have to sit out. So he'd lose a year of eligibility. So he wouldn't get to play his full years. So then a lot of those athletes would want to come to Division II schools where they could play their full years of eligibility. So a lot of those internal rules have changed, which has made the transfer portal really complex, because you can now transfer from school to school and not have to sit out and be eligible immediately.
You can get a Kentucky. I know we're tongue in cheek, but if you think of Kentucky, no player on that roster was on the roster last year.
Correct.
They almost all of them transfer in, didn't have to sit out. They're playing day one.
And Jonathon, to give you some context, some like the ones that Coach Calipari brought from Kentucky to Arkansas don't have to sit out. Right. 15 years ago when I started, or 18 years ago when I was first a head coach, if you transferred, you probably in some situations had to sit out. But for sure, if you transferred within the same league, automatically you had to sit out. And that was like the ultimate no-no. Well, now you got to have it all the time. I mean, okay, you're my rival. Okay, I may come and join your team next year. So it's made for a very, very interesting time. We went back and we looked last year at the students from SBU that entered the portal, and Kristen Clardy's just really, really good with our compliance piece of our department. And I said, Kristen, could you look and see how many of our athletes that went into the portal landed at other NCAA schools? And she can pull that up. And what we found is 35% of our kids that went into the portal landed at another NCAA school. That's significant, guys, because that means we need to make sure, our athletes need to make sure that they know what they're doing as far as.
So 65% didn't end up on a roster.
Didn't end up at a roster. Wow. And so I think the lesson that is to me is grass isn't always greener, and that if I have a frustration or a struggle or something that I feel like is just, I need to go somewhere else, that doesn't always work. And so I'm not trying to operate out of a sense of fear, but just a reality of that's not always the easy way, and the best way. So that's something that we're trying to continue to look and see, okay, are there trends here that we can help communicate to our athletes and help them see, okay, look, when you're a freshman and you're having a hard time with your roommate, or you don't like, which our food's awesome, but you don't like the food or something like that, man, that's 99.9% of people their freshman year. That's not weird. That's that's normal, man. And you can transfer somewhere else, but there's going to be other issues there too. And so just trying to help our athletes understand, like, here's what you need to be aware of. Here's what you need to be thinking about in that process, because very much so, if we're not careful, we can begin to think, okay, I don't like this about this place, so I've got to go try to find something else here. And then when we get there,
something else.
Usually there's something else that's hard too. So that's part of how we see what we're trying to do in regards to transfer portal, is just providing education and information just to say, hey, we want you to make the decision that you need to make, but we also want to give you some information just so you're not making something that you look back on and regret.
Yeah. Is it? I don't want to assume, but I would. Obviously, we can take advantage of the transfer portal.
Oh, sure.
Just like other schools can too. So it's not like we're not in that realm and working with the students. But I would think all the things we talked about, culture building type of institution we are. I mean, we like to get students here as freshmen and see them through the process. I mean, certainly if someone comes in, grows exponentially and gets this great opportunity to go, live their dream at a Division I top tier program. I mean, that is what it is. But for us, I would assume we're wanting to find that student who's a good fit, who's going to grow and make it through the whole time here.
You bet. Yeah. I mean, that's the scenario we're striving for. Yeah. I had a meeting this morning with an athlete, and it was so interesting how they communicated. Their eligibility is done, and they were just awesome with how they communicated. And they just said, we went through some struggles and had some ups and downs and had some transitions and leadership, and all of it was really challenging in a lot of ways. And they paused. They said, but if I had to do all over again, I would have done the exact same thing. And I said, you know what, that's growth. And that's a maturity to see, my journey wasn't as smooth as what I hoped it would be. And there was changes and there was different things that happened that I wouldn't have asked for. But in the middle of that, as I look back on it, I'm glad I went through it. And I think that's something that I hope that students and student athletes specifically value from their time with us.
That's awesome. Well, I know we're super appreciative of you and your staff and the culture you guys are building in athletics. I'm super thankful for your coaches and helping us recruit students because they work their tails off just like our counselors do to bring students here to SBU. And thanks for taking some time to talk through with us.
You bet. Thanks, Brandt. Thanks, Jonathon.
Thanks for everything you're doing.
SBU is a special place. And we tell our coaches from time to time, we say, our job is, while we get to run with a baton, is to run as hard, as fast as we can and do as good a job before we hand it on to the next person. And so I know you guys are doing that. And we're thankful for you too. And
you guys, I forgot to mention this, sir, you're a real legacy. I mean, it's not just you here continuing your parents' legacy, but you've got a sister who's our provost, Dr. Tracy Manley, also here as well. That's kind of, I would imagine, been a cool dynamic.
For sure. Yeah. My sister's really smart. She's way smarter than I am. And it's fun watching.
We are. Yeah.
It's fun watching her in a business setting, because in a lot of times I only see her as an older sister and in a family setting. So sometimes when I'm in meetings and I'm hearing her talk and letting her or watching her navigate different things, it's just like, man, you're right where the Lord has you, and you're a stud. That's and great. I love it. So it's fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we'll be back next week. You'll be out of here. You won't be.
I will be on
site.
A podcast, but I will be in. I'll be in San Diego, California. So I'll shoot from the beach.
You can do a preview of where you're going to be.
Yeah, previews. I'll be at the Evangelical Theological Society, and so I'll present some research I've been working on there. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit next week on the podcast. But excited to be out there, see some colleagues, people I do some things with. I'll room with a guy that we've written some things together, just published a book together. So be out there more of an academic setting and doing some of that that side of my life a little bit.
Yeah, so it's great. We got a big preview day on Saturday for prospective students. Hope to have about 80, I think, here for that. So it'll be a big weekend for that. Do we have games on campus this weekend?
So this weekend we got our last football game on the road. We got our volleyball team on the road. Next Thursday, week from today, next Thursday we'll have our first doubleheader men's women's basketball game. So that's that last kind of gas before everybody goes on Thanksgiving break. So hopefully we'll have a ton of students come out and have a great time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Clark. And we'll be back next week. Thank you, guys.